for the 1099 quick tips. We asked Stan Sunblade out of Lincoln Housing Authority to help us with a presentation on that. The professional development team with Nebraska NARO decided that we wanted to try, this is our first try at this, is to do some quick tips throughout the year, possibly monthly or as needed, to offer just expertise of what we know as directors, managers, all our staff, and share it with others across the Nebraska NARO organization. So let us know how you think it goes, if you like it or if you don't like it, if there's things that you would like to change. Again, poor Stan is doing this as the first guinea pig for testing to try to do this, and if it's beneficial to you. Also, let us know if you have any topics that you would like us to seek out experts on, to just share a quick moment. We don't want to do in-depth training, just really quick stuff where you can just spend a few, less than 30 minutes to learn something. So I'm going to hand this over to Stan Sunblade. Thanks again, Stan, for doing this for us.
Yes, you're welcome. Welcome everybody and good morning. Sean asked me to do this presentation and I couldn't say no to Shauna. So here I am. This is on the 1099s, and it's really important stuff, but they do need to be out within a couple of weeks. So hopefully you have a good start towards getting this done. Again, my name is Stan Sunblade. I'm with the Lincoln Housing Authority. I've been with the Housing Authority for almost 40 years, overseeing the finances. And so I've been through this process a few times, but I liked what Shauna said of what we know. And so I'm not a tax accountant. This is my best understanding of the information. And so I'll share that with you. See if I can share my screen here.
While Stan's getting the screen set up, I just want to mention that Heather Loper sent the slides ahead of time and some other attachments. If you didn't receive that email, you can either respond to Heather or myself or Patty Wright, and we'd be happy to forward it to you.
Okay, can you see my 1099 filing screen?
No.
No, okay. Try it again.
We did do a test run.
Yes.
It's
There's that.
Here it is.
Okay, good. All right, as I said, this is on 1099 filing, and like Shauna said, I sent the slides earlier, and also some attachments, some IRS publications. Okay, generally PHA will issue two different kinds of 1099s. There's a lot of different 1099s, but typically we're only dealing with 1099 miscellaneous and the 1099 NEC. The NEC is for non-employee compensation. That would be for any payment of services performed by someone other than an employee. Of course, anything done by an employee would be on the W-2. So this would be for non-employees, for services. The other one is the 1099 miscellaneous. This one is for housing assistance payments or rent payments, but typically it'd be for housing authorities, housing assistance payments in the Section 8 program. There are two ways to file with the IRS, and this is either by paper or electronically. Now, they do have a requirement that if you have 10 or more forms, that you have to file electronically, and that's in the aggregate. So if you have 5 of NEC and 5 miscellaneous, then you would have 10 total you would need to file electronically. Now, if you file by paper, you do use a Form 1096 as the transmittal form. If you're filing electronically, you do not need the Form 1096. Okay, filing deadlines for the NEC and the 1099 miscellaneous, they are due to the recipient by January 31st. The 1099 miscellaneous filing to the IRS. If you're filing by paper, it's due by February 28th. Again, you must use the 1096 form if done by paper. Filing electronically, it's due to the IRS by March 31st. I know in some of the training we've received, they've told us that the IRS is considering changing the deadline to January 31st for the 1099 miscellaneous. I believe this year it's still March 31st. The 1099 NEC is due to the IRS by January 31st for both paper and electronic filing. Okay, getting back here to the 1099 miscellaneous. Again, this is for reporting of rents or housing assistance payments. You will report that in box 1, and you only need to report if it's $600 or more. There are a couple exceptions to that. If you have legal settlements paid to an attorney, you must report that on the 1099 miscellaneous in box 10, regardless of the amount. And again, this is for settlements. If you have a lawsuit or you're settling some kind of issue, that would be on the miscellaneous. Payment of legal services gets reported on the 1099 NEC. Here's a sample 1099 miscellaneous. And you put the payer's name, address, so forth. That would be the housing authority in the first box. And then the payer's taxpayer identification number, the recipient's taxpayer identification number, then the recipient information. There is a place for an account number at the bottom. That is optional, so you do not need to complete that. The only thing would be is if you have a recipient that has 2 different accounts with you and are reporting them separately, then you would need to use the account number if you're issuing 2 1099s to the same person. Now, we've never done that. I don't know why you would want to, but that's the only time you'd have to use an account number. And then the boxes here to the right, the rents or HAP payments would go in box 1. And if you do backup withholding, any backup withholding would be reported in box 4 for federal income tax. And then you'd have the same with the state if you did any backup withholding for state. And that is something we have not done backup withholding either. We've tried to avoid that. But if you do have to, that's where you'd report it. The 1099 NEC, again, this is for payment of services by someone other than an employee. Again, the limit is $600 or more. If it's less than 600, there's no need to report it. There's an exception to that, of course. With legal payments, you need to report even if a corporation. And there's a couple of other things you need to report even if they're a corporation. I'll get to those on a couple of different slides here. Report in box 1 of the NEC for the services. Now, you're only required to report for services, and if you are accounting for the payment of materials and services separately, you can exclude the materials from your reporting and just report services. Now, we don't do that. When we account for things, that's what we pay to a vendor in total. And so it's okay to report the total paid to the vendor, materials and services together. But if you want to exclude materials and you have the ability to do that, you sure can. Here's a sample NEC form. It's very similar to the miscellaneous. There's fewer boxes. Again, you have the PHA information and the recipient information. Again, the count number is optional. And the non-employee compensation would go on line 1. And if you do backup withholding, that would go in box 4 for federal. And then box 5 if you did backup withholding for state. Okay, some exceptions to the NEC. Payments to corporations are not required to be reported. Now, the exception to that is if you have payments to law firms or attorneys, you have to report those, even if they're corporations. If you have payments for medical services, you're required to report those. And I could not find where it says you have to report CPA firms, but the trainings we've attended have said that you have to report payments to CPA firms, even if they're a corporation. There's no penalty for reporting something you're not required to. So if in doubt, go ahead and report it. Getting back to the corporations, you'll see a lot of times companies will say they're an LLC, which is limited liability company. Some of those are treated as a C or an S corporation. If they are treated as a corporation, you can exclude them. If they're not treated as a corporation, then you must report it. Again, payments for merchandise, materials, telegrams, telephone, freight, storage, things like that are not required to be reported. I'm not sure who does telegrams anymore, but it is excluded. Rents are not reported on the NEC. Rents are reported on the 1099 miscellaneous. That would include HAP, as we talked about earlier. Wages, again, would be reported on a W-2, not a 1099. And payments to tax-exempt organizations or governmental organizations are also exempt from reporting. There are some additional exceptions that are listed in the instructions for the forms, which I attached to the information that Heather sent out. Most of those exceptions don't apply to housing authorities. Now, I don't believe that you can issue a W-2 and a 1099 NEC to the same person. So if you have an employee that's doing things, my understanding is it has to be reported on the W-2. You cannot issue both to the same person. Okay, the taxpayer identification number, it's critical that that matches the name on the form. And you can obtain this information from your vendors using a Form W-9. The IRS suggests that you use the Form W-9. It is not required. You can take the information over the phone or in any way you can get it, you can take it. But it's best to get a W-9 if you can. The W-9 does not need to be signed unless you've been notified by the IRS that the information is incorrect. Then you can require the vendor to sign the form. Now, a lot of times the vendor will give you a DBA, a doing business as. You always want to make sure that the number they give you matches the name that you put on the first line. If they do a DBA, you can put that on the second line. But the name and number must match. Now, one thing that we've been doing for years, that we've been doing a TIN matching process. And if you have the ability to do that, you should. If you don't currently do it, that's something you could sign up for. And the TIN matching, I gave the link there to get to that. And when you go in there, if you click on, you know, the matching, it should either you have an account or you don't, and you can set one up. But if you do the TIN matching, you can put in the name and the number, and you will get an immediate response whether it's a match or not. Now, this is nice to do, because if you report at the end of the year and you have mismatches, the IRS will send you a B notice for each mismatch. And that B notice requires that you follow up, and you have to get a hold of the vendor, the people you're making your payments to, and make sure you can get the information corrected and revise your 1099. Now, if it's a clerical error, it's simpler, but if they've reported to you wrong, then it's more work. And also, if you cannot get the information, then you must start backup withholding, and that's at 24%. And I know our vendors and landlords would not want to have 24% deducted from their payments. And again, I don't think we've ever had to do this. We've had to threaten it a few times, but I don't believe we've ever had to do backup withholding. On the TIN matching, we used to have, we send out like 1,000 1099s every year, and we used to have between 15 and 20 mismatches. It was a lot of work to follow up on those. We started the TIN matching, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, and we may get 1 or 2 mismatches now, and usually those are clerical errors. So it's been a great help to us. Okay, here's a sample. If you go to that link that I included, you'll come up with a screen something like this. And then if you try to access the TIN matching application, then it'll ask you to either go into an existing account or set up an account. Again, it's critical that you send out 1099s and that they are correct. The IRS does have threatened penalties, and they will penalize you if you do not file the forms or don't file them correctly. And it's a pretty significant fine. Like I said, we do about 1,000 1099s. If you're late, up to 30 days late, it's $60 per form. So that would be, in our case, it'd be 60 times 1,000. If you're between 31 days and August 1st, it's $130. After August 1st, it's $330. If you intentionally just blow it off and don't do it, it's $660 per form. So pretty substantial penalties for not filing. Okay, there's 2 ways of filing. And if you're for e-filing, for the e-filing, you can use the IRIS system, which stands for Information Returns Intake System. And I put a link there, the irs.gov/IRIS. It's a free taxpayer portal. It's the e-services with the IRS. If you've been into the IRS e-services, you'll be familiar with that. It does require a transmitter control code, and the control code for the IRIS will start with a D. So if you have a transmitter control code, if it starts with a D, it's an IRIS code. If it's just numeric only, then you have a TCC for the FIRE system. The FIRE system stands for Filing Information Returns Electronically. And again, I put a link there. The FIRE system is for bulk filing, and you will need to have software to do this. Generally, if you have, a housing software package or accounting package, you can work with your software vendor on the bulk filing through the FIRE system. Again, you have to have a TCC code to file electronically. If you don't have one, you would need to apply, and it does take up to 45 days to get a TCC code. So for this year, with the January 31st deadline, probably too late to get a code, and I guess you'd have to get advice from your accountant or somebody you can trust on the e-filing if you don't have a code and need to e-file. I put a disclaimer in here. Most of this is based on 2024 instructions. I'm assuming that we will use the same instructions. I could not find anything new for 2025, but keep your eyes open if anything comes out. Again, it's, January 15th, so I doubt anything new will be coming out. And again, this is my best understanding of the information. So if you have questions or need further advice, why please seek that out from a professional you trust. I did want to, these are the attachments that I included, and I think Heather sent those out. There's some general instructions for filing the 1099 forms. So I included those. It's like 31 pages of information there. Included a filing chart. And again, if you scroll through this or look at this, you can see all the different forms and a lot of different 1099s on here. But it's got the filing dates, the date you have to get it to the recipient, and the date to get it to the IRS, and what needs to be reported as far as dollar amounts. And then the other one I sent out is the specific instructions for the 1099 miscellaneous and 1099 NEC forms. So if you have questions, you have the instructions there. You can look through those first. Hopefully you can find the information there. I know some of you use fee accountants. I don't know if they help you with your 1099s or not, or some of you, I know like Shauna, she does her own. So it's a lot of fun. So that's all I had for my presentation.
Thank you, Stan. That's awesome. If you have a question that you want to attempt to ask Stan, you can certainly put it in the chat. And then Patty, is your intent is that you'll unmute them, or?
Yes, I will unmute people when they want to ask questions. So
yeah, so if you'll
good.
put in the chat that you have a question, and then Patty will unmute you.
Hopefully with no questions, Shauna, that means that either people understand it or else maybe they're totally lost.
Well, I thought that you did an awesome job. And like I said, when we did the walkthrough, I learned a couple of things just going through with you when you went through your PowerPoint presentation. So I appreciated the information myself personally.
Thank you. I might mention that we I have a lady that works for me that does the 1099. She does get annual training on 1099s because usually something changes every year, and the training can be done via a webinar. You don't have to go anywhere, but it is critical that you stay current with the 1099 requirements every year. So I would advise, if you have opportunities for training each year, that you take advantage of that.
Yeah, a good suggestion. I know I had my staff attend one of them that you suggested. And like you said, they have a lot more in there than what we need to know, but you just have to pick through it. Well, I'm not seeing any questions. I'm seeing a lot of thank yous, and that the training was great. So again, Stan, I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge, because I know you have a lot of it. I said I should have paid better attention during those staff meetings.
Okay.
When you talked about some of this stuff, I'm like,
Well, it was good for me too, because Dawn does these 1099s for me here at Lincoln, and so it caused me to get back into it a little bit, because I've just kind of fallen fallen on her, and just, I appreciate what she does, and I kind of take it for granted,
Yeah. All right, well, again, if anybody has suggestions of other things they'd like quick tips about, feel free to email Patty or I, or give us a call. I'm in the North Platte Housing Authority office, and Patty's in Schuyler. What's the other one? Anyhow, Schuyler, if you go through Schuyler, you can get a hold of us, or you can get a hold of Heather Loper and let her know, and we'll see what we can do to see if we can find an expert or somebody that's willing to present their expertise of what they know. Thank you.
Thank you.